И есть все основания полагать. Я еще совсем недавно говорил, мы их дожмем, есть основания полагать, что мы их добьем. Я думаю, что только должно прийти осознание того, что происходит у самого украинского народа. А то, что наши вооруженные силы набирают обороты, действуют все более и более эффективно.
This is my video update on this Friday afternoon, March the 28th, coming to you from Nicosia, Cyprus. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with some amazing statements from Russian President Vladimir Putin, who was inspecting a new Russian a nuclear sub with Zircon hypersonic missiles. And as he was inspecting this sub, he talked about the conflict in Ukraine. And I believe this is the most important statements that he has made about the conflict in Ukraine, because we may have an understanding as to how Putin sees the future of Ukraine in these statements that he made. So Putin, he said that the Russian military is now controlling 99%. Did he say 90% or 99% of Lugansk? He said that they're controlling about 70% of the other three regions, Zaporozhye, Kherson, and Donetsk. And he admitted that things were moving gradually. He actually said that things are moving gradually. I understand that things are going more gradually than most people would like. I'll read you his exact statement in a bit, just so I can be accurate in my reporting. But he then went on to say that the Russian military is now in a position to finish off the Ukraine military and to complete the goals of the special military operation. A very bold and confident statement from the Russian president. He said, "We are gradually, not as quickly as some would like, but nevertheless persistently and confidently moving towards achieving all the goals declared at the beginning of this operation. Along the entire line of combat contact, our troops have the strategic initiative. I said just recently, we will finish them off. There is reason to believe that we will finish them off." Finish them off. That's an exact quote from the Russian president. He also went on to say how Russia's not going to be fooled into any type of agreement that is not in Russia's best interests. So no Minsk III or any trickery like that anymore. He talked about Merkel, as he was talking about being tricked, Angela Merkel, and he talked about Boris Johnson. He brought them up, though he did not say Boris Johnson. He didn't call Boris Johnson by name, but in his statement, it was clearly understood that he was referencing Boris the clown. And then Putin went on to say that the Elensky regime is illegitimate, and Elensky is illegitimate, And if Elensky is illegitimate, then his regime is illegitimate. And if his regime is illegitimate, then everyone under his regime or working for his regime is illegitimate, and everything that he signs is illegitimate, and everything that he says is illegitimate, and everything is illegitimate. That is what he said, and he's kind of got a point if you go by how Russia interprets the Ukraine constitution, which if you go by what their legal experts claim, then Elensky is an illegitimate ruler, because there should have been, according to the Ukraine constitution, elections about a year ago. And those elections were canceled, which went against the Ukraine constitution. Elensky says they were canceled because of martial law, but according to Russian legal experts, there's no such clause in the Ukraine constitution about canceling presidential elections because of martial law. The parliament is a different story. But Elensky is illegitimate, and the entire Ukraine regime is illegitimate, and everything they sign is illegitimate. And Putin went on to say, if we do sign peace negotiations, if Ukraine does capitulate and they have to sign documents, who's going to sign them? Elensky's not going to be able to sign them. Someone under Elensky or appointed by Elensky is not going to be able to sign them. No one's going to be able to sign them, and if they do sign them, they will not be legitimate documents, legitimate surrender or peace or capitulation documents. And so Putin's suggestion is that the United Nations step in. That's what he is suggesting. The UN come into Project Ukraine, and a temporary government is administered by the United Nations. And Putin said that there is precedent for this. It has happened in the past. I believe he talked about East Timor. I believe he talked about Papua New Guinea, I believe he talked about, and also the former Yugoslavia. This type of mechanism has been used in the past. The UN comes in, they administer the government of Ukraine, they manage the government of Ukraine, they manage it towards elections, and you have legitimate, real elections. Then an internationally recognized government comes into power, and it's that government that Russia can negotiate with, and it's that government that can sign documents and peace documents and capitulation documents and all of these things. And that is what Putin said. An incredible statement from Putin. And he said that if you don't have the UN stepping in and Elensky just exits, what's to prevent a new Elensky from coming in, an Azov type of Elensky? That's what Putin said, an Azov, NAZI type of government stepping in for Elensky, or if you just allow elections to take place without the UN and without this mechanism, and Russia signs a document with the current regime, then you can get a new Ukraine government, which would also have Azov, NAZI people in that government, and then they can take the papers that were signed by the previous Zelensky regime, and they can tear those papers up, and it doesn't solve the Ukraine problem. It doesn't get to the root causes. So he made that argument as well. His solution is the United Nations. The United Nations coming in, running the show in Ukraine for a couple of months, getting internationally recognized elections, and then proceeding towards negotiations and some sort of a deal and a resolution to the conflict in Ukraine. It's a very, very smart, very elegant solution, if I could use those words, because you solve the Elensky problem without having to resort to some nasty type of regime change, which is what the collective West and the US usually does when they want to switch out governments. They look towards some sort of regime change, and that causes all kinds of problems in the future. This way, you have the UN coming in, and every country in the world, according to Putin, once the UN is there, every country in the world will recognize the government that follows the United Nations, that comes next after the United Nations' presence. So, wow, what a statement from Putin. What an idea from the Russian president. Putin proposes the UN temporarily govern Ukraine. The Russian president has reiterated that the current authorities in Kiev are illegitimate given the lack of elections. Presidential elections weren't held under the Constitution. All officials are appointed by the president. If he himself is illegitimate, then so is everyone else. Putin said such an initiative should involve not just the UN or the US, but a broader coalition including BRICS nations and others Russia considers reliable. We will work with any partners, the US, China, India, Brazil, South Africa, BRICS countries, and, for example, North Korea. And notice that there's no Europe in there, there's no EU, there's no UK in there. Putin did say in a statement that Russia does not close the door to future talks with European countries or with the EU. But in this plan that he's laid out, he's talking about the UN, and he's leaving the door open for other countries to help implement this plan. And in those countries that Putin listed out, you have the US in there, which is interesting. You also have BRICS, China, India, Brazil, South Africa, and you even have North Korea. Fantastic, man. Fantastic. What can you say? It's very smart. A very smart plan from the Russian president. And, you know, this is a plan that addresses the problem of Elensky, which the U.S. has, because the U.S. does not want Elensky in power in Ukraine anymore. It addresses the problem of Elensky that Russia has. It gets past the ceasefire, the Black Sea ceasefire deal, which is now stuck at the EU level because the EU refuses to lift sanctions against Russia, against the Russian banks, the agricultural banks, and the various institutions. The EU has rejected the lifting of sanctions and connecting to SWIFT and stuff like that. So you're kind of stuck now in the negotiation process that the U.S. is trying to push along, which is the energy infrastructure ceasefire, then the Black Sea ceasefire, then an overall ceasefire, and then you talk territory. So right now the U.S.'s plan is stuck on the Black Sea ceasefire. We'll see if the Trump administration can somehow push the Europeans to lift sanctions against Russia. It's going to be difficult. It's going to take time. If they can even accomplish it, and Putin's coming up with an alternative solution. I would say a more realistic and a more viable solution. This could also be seen as the collective West's, Ukraine's, last chance to accept Istanbul Plus, their last chance to accept the terms from June 2024, the root causes terms. So you could look at the statements from Putin as this is your last chance to accept those terms that we put forth in June of 2024 during his speech at the Russian Foreign Ministry. The next terms are going to be a whole lot worse. The next terms will most likely be the Russian military controlling all of the four regions in their entirety. They will most likely include Kharkov, Sumy, because the Russians are moving now in the direction of Sumy, and there are reports which claim that the Russian military is going to launch a big offensive in the spring, in May, in the southern direction. We're talking about Nikolaev, Odessa, the Black Sea. That's what we could be talking about. And so the terms are going to get a lot worse for Ukraine, for the collective West. And of course, you have the idea of the UN coming in and administering Ukraine. Elensky is gone. So this is your last chance, Ukraine. This is your last chance, Europe, to go along with Istanbul Plus. That's another way that you can look at these statements from the Russian president. So let's talk about the Europeans. By the way, Trump. By the way, Putin also at the Arctic summit, he gave a speech and he talked about Greenland as well. And he told those in attendance, Trump is serious about Greenland. He said, do not laugh at Trump's statements about annexing Greenland. He said that the United States has been wanting to annex Greenland since 1860. And they've actually kicked around this idea many times in the past. He also said that that back in the day when people were laughing about Alaska and doubting Alaska entering the United States, people were laughing then, and he said Alaska is now a state in the U.S. So Putin told everyone in attendance, do not think that Trump is joking around when he is talking about annexing Greenland. Denmark. This is not a joke. But Mette Frederiksen, she continues to talk about sending money and weapons, not to Greenland, but to Project Ukraine. She's completely focused on Project Ukraine and stopping Russia's imperialism. You have to stop Russia's imperialism. That is what the Prime Minister of Denmark has stated many times in the past. It's all about fighting Russia's imperialism as Greenland is about to be annexed by the United States. Anyway, let's talk about the Europeans, because we had the coalition of the Willing Summit in Paris, France yesterday, and it is no longer a peacekeeping force that we are talking about. Things have changed. Things have changed. And we are talking about a reassurance force. We've got a cool rebranding. No longer are we talking about peacekeeping forces. We are talking about reassurance forces. And we're not talking about a big coalition of European countries sending in their forces into Ukraine. We are now talking about a reassurance force of two countries, the UK and France. That is what we are talking about. Maybe some Denmark. Italy has said nope. They said no. They were in attendance at this meeting. Actually, 30 high-level European officials came to this coalition of the Unwilling Losers event in Paris, France, hosted by the Emperor of France, little Napoleon Emmanuel Macron. And Giorgia Meloni said, nope, we are not going to get involved in any incursion into Ukraine. Stammer and Macron are saying that it's not going to be a big ground force. That's also changed as well. You're not talking about a big ground force. You're talking about some soldiers in certain cities and ports, but mostly you're looking at the UK and France enforcing some sort of a no-fly zone in Ukraine. How are they going to do that? Don't know, don't care, but maybe they will do it. I don't know. I give it a 20% chance that Macron and Stammer are stupid enough to actually do this. Macron, maybe Macron, I'll give him a 10% chance and I'll bump up Stammer to 30%. Stammer 30% chance that he's stupid enough to do this. Macron, Macron, he's flip-flopping. He's a flipping and he's a flopping and he's a flipping and a flopping. Today he says reassurance forces. Tomorrow he's talking about something else. I don't know. But anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, Italy is out. Greece has said they're out. Poland is out. Every country is out. Every country came to this event. They talked a big game about how they're going to support Ukraine for as long as it takes. Van der Crazy said 3 important things were decided at this summit. This is a statement from Van der Crazy. She said 3 important things were decided. Number 1, tatters. Number 2, tatters. Number 3, tatters. No, I'm just kidding. Number 1, she said that, what did she say? That they're going to support Ukraine with money. She said that's number 1. She said number 2, they're going to not lift sanctions. That was the other thing that was decided. And number 3, she said that the Europeans are going to support Ukraine in the long term. Those were the 3 big decisions that were decided, which are really decisions about that have no meaning at all. They have no meaning at all. Maybe the rejection of the Black Sea deal, but the Trump administration, if they put enough pressure on Europe, maybe they can get Europe to go back on that Black Sea ceasefire block that they're putting up. We'll see. We'll see how that unfolds if the Trump administration wants to deal with the Europeans. But yeah, those are the 3 big decisions. They're going to support Ukraine in the long run. They reject the Black Sea thing and more money to Project Ukraine, money that the Europeans do not have. But all the countries are out. Macron, he made a statement after the event, and he actually admitted that there is no mandate. There's no European mandate. There's no international mandate for any type of incursion into Ukraine. But he said that we don't need a unanimous decision or any mandates. As France, if we want to, we can go into Ukraine or try to enforce a no-fly zone. With the UK, they decided nothing on the frozen assets as well. Nothing there. No security guarantees. So Elensky didn't even get security guarantees. Well, actually, he has about 30 security guarantees. Remember all those security guarantees that he signed over the past couple of years with various countries of the collective West? Whatever happened to those security guarantees that Elensky was signing with all of these countries? Who cares about all those security guarantees that he signed with Canada and France and Germany and even the United States? Forget about those security guarantees. They're meaningless. Zelensky wants new security guarantees, and he didn't get any security guarantees at this coalition of the unwilling losers event. And that's it. Really, it was a failure, to be quite honest. A complete failure, with the UK and France talking about entering into some sort of conflict with Russia, trying to enforce some sort of no-fly zone, sending a couple of thousand troops to certain cities and certain ports. And that was the outcome of this event. Germany said that they may send troops to Ukraine. Here's what the defense minister said. He said, when it comes to German troops in Ukraine, 1 second. Here we go. Italy pours cold water on pro-Ukraine coalition of the willing. Okay, I talked about that. Here we go. German defense minister signals openness to peacekeepers in Ukraine. German defense minister Boris Pistorius and his Estonian counterpart Hanno Pevkur signaled willingness to help secure peace in Ukraine with boots on the ground, at least in theory. So Germany and Estonia, yeah, they'll send troops into Ukraine, boots on the ground in Ukraine. At least in theory. A lot of things can happen in theory, right? Anyway, that's in theory. In theory, we'll send troops to Ukraine. In theory. Oh boy, the Financial Times says Europe's reassurance force in Ukraine to take shape in 3 to 4 weeks, says Emmanuel Macron. UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer said London has hosted over 200 military planners from 30 countries this week, and that countries were coming forward with contributions on everything from logistics and command and control to deployments on land, air, and sea. This is Europe mobilizing together behind the peace process on a scale we haven't seen for decades, he said. Of course, Starmer doesn't mention that the only countries that will be sending troops into Ukraine are going to be the UK and France. And the other countries, well, they're out. They are out. They are officially out. But Starmer is putting up a very confident posture when it comes to taking on Russia in Ukraine. He's painting a very bold and strong picture, taking on the Russians in Ukraine, because for Starmer, this is about Europe. Europe coming together. That's the key word. Europe. The UK and Europe. Reverse Brexit. You got to reverse Brexit. So Europe is coming together like nothing we have ever seen before in history. Isn't it great when the UK and the EU work together? That is what Starmer is going to tell the British people. Isn't it fantastic when we join forces, the UK and the EU, to take on Russia? Wouldn't it be great, citizens of the UK, if we just re-entered the European Union or signed some sort of a customs deal because we work so well together? That's Starmer's angle in all of this. But give him a 30% chance that he's actually dumb enough to send something into Ukraine, which will be annihilated by the Russian military, and then Starmer will run to the United States and cry for help. Possible, very possible. What else? The Wall Street Journal says Europe hatches plans for Ukraine peacekeepers without the U.S. defense chiefs from the coalition of the willing discuss how best to put boots on the ground in Ukraine if there is peace. That's right, if there is peace. If there is an agreement between the U.S. and Russia, if the U.S. backstops, that's a condition, if the U.S. backstops this coalition of the willing plan, then, and only then, will the UK and France send troops into Ukraine, according to the Wall Street Journal. And so we have an article from the Financial Times with the title, U.S. pushes for expansive New Deal to control Ukraine's minerals and energy. The latest draft sent to Kiev steps up demands and offers no security guarantees. So the latest rare earth minerals deal that has been presented to the Elensky regime is tough, very tough. Basically, the U.S. is telling the Elensky regime that they are taking everything in Ukraine in perpetuity, forever, forever, ever, forever, ever. Sorry, Miss Jackson. That's right. They are taking everything. That is the new deal that is being presented, the minerals deal that is now being presented to the Elensky regime. The money from these resources will be controlled by the United States. They will set up a committee to manage everything, where you will have 3 Americans on this committee and 2 Ukrainians on this committee, with the Americans having veto rights as they make decisions about the natural resources of Ukraine. We're talking about minerals, we're talking about ports, we're talking about oil and gas. It all goes to the United States forever. And the minerals deal, the money that will be collected going forward from this deal will be paying backwards. It will be paying back the $350 billion that Trump claims the United States spent on Project Ukraine. So all of the resources in Ukraine go to the US, and what Ukraine is paying back is this is not future looking. This is not about generating revenue and investing in the future. Everything that's going to come out of these resources money generated from these resources will be used to pay back the United States for everything they have invested in Ukraine. This is a very tough deal that has been presented to the Elensky regime, and there are many Ukraine officials who are saying as much. They're saying that this deal is impossible to sign, and that may be the point. That may just be the point. This may be a hint from the Trump administration that they are preparing to exit Project Ukraine. They may have purposely presented a deal to Ukraine that is so lopsided, so bad for Ukraine to sign, so impossible for Ukraine to sign, that when Ukraine does come back and say, we can't sign this, come on, are you joking? Then the United States can say, okay, we've done everything we possibly could. We tried to negotiate in good faith with Russia on the ceasefires, the energy infrastructure ceasefire, the Black Sea ceasefire. We tried to put together a minerals deal with you. Nothing has worked out. So we're out of here. That could be what this is a setup for. We'll find out, but it's impossible for Ukraine to sign. Even if Elensky were to sign this minerals deal, then he would be done. It would be over for any government. Any government to sign this, it would be over for them. That's how bad of a deal this is. And I think the Trump administration made it like that because they're looking for a way to exit out of this thing. That's the sense that I get. We'll find out what happens with this minerals deal. And let's do one more story, two more stories, and then we'll wrap up today's video. We have the auto tariffs, which come into effect, I believe, on April the 3rd. I believe they are coming into effect. So Canada and the European Union are very upset. The European Union, they are saying that they will retaliate against these auto tariffs, 25% tariffs on automobiles and auto parts. And Canada is also saying that they have prepared an extensive list of retaliatory measures against the United States if the tariffs do come into effect on April the 3rd. Trump has warned the EU and Canada not to join forces. He posted this message on Truth Social: if the European Union works with Canada in order to do economic harm to the USA, large-scale tariffs far larger than currently planned will be placed on them both in order to protect the best friend that each of those two countries has ever had. Politico is reporting that Carney is saying that Canada-U.S. ties are over. They are not what they used to be. The old relationship we had with the United States is over, the Prime Minister said after the latest Trump threats. So these tariffs, the way it works is if an automobile has American parts, if it's coming from Canada, and 50% of it has American parts, then that 50% is not going to have tariffs. The other 50% of that automobile, if it has foreign parts, it's going to be the foreign parts that get tariffed. Of course, if 100% of the automobile does not have American parts, then 100% is going to be tariffed. That's pretty much how the tariffs are going to work. So Canada's exploring all of this right now, and they're trying to figure out if this is going to, how much damage this is going to do to their economy and to their factories. So that's the tariff war between the EU and the United States, between Canada and the United States. Trump's warning to Canada not to partner with the European Union. If you're Canada, why would you want to partner with the European Union? I don't know, but anyway, that's Trump's warning. We'll wait. We'll wait for April 3rd to arrive and see what happens there. Trump is endorsing Lindsey Graham. Why is he endorsing Lindsey Graham? He posted on Truth Social his endorsement of Lindsey Graham. A lot of people are sounding off on this Lindsey Graham endorsement from Trump. Why are you endorsing Lindsey Graham? Anyway, let's do some clown worlds. Let's do one clown world. We got one clown world for today. There were protests in Turkey again yesterday, and one of the protesters was Pikachu, Pokemon. I don't know Pokemon. I'm not very familiar with Pokemon, but I do recognize Pikachu when I see Pikachu, and Pikachu was one of the protesters in the crowd in Turkey. So that's the clown world. That's the video. The Duran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and X. Go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch, like what I'm wearing in this video update. A link is in the description box down below. 15% off all merch on the Duran shop. Use the code SPRING15. Take care.